Hello, and welcome to This is a Classic, the Expand the Canon Theater podcast. We're your hosts. Yes, all your hosts.
Hi, I'm Triza Cox, the 2023-2024 Director of Outreach and Engagement with the Hedgehog Ensemble Theater.
I'm Kalina, she, her pronouns. I'm one of the curators for Expand the Canon.
I'm Skye, she, her pronouns. I am also one of the curators for Expand the Canon.
Gagarin, pronouns are they, them, and I am also one of the curators for Expand the Canon.
And me, Emily Lyon, she, her, Artistic Director of Hedgehog and Curator for Expand the Canon. And we're here to introduce you to some plays by women that are classics.
Expand the Canon is a program of Hedgehog Ensemble, a Brooklyn-based company that reimagines the classics, creating a legacy of storytelling with gender equity at its core.
In the past, we've focused on full-length plays, and every year chosen 9 of the most excellent, relevant, and producible by historic women and gender-expansive playwrights.
But every year we've also read plays that we love, but are ultimately just too short for our normal lists. Yet they're so good, so we keep coming back to them every year thinking, well, maybe this is the year we can finally make this work.
So we decided this is the year. We're bringing you a full list of short and one-act plays. But since they're shorter, we're doing even more. This list has 16 classic plays.
So between all 5 of our lists, we now have 52 plays by 50 playwrights.
Woo! Oh, yeah.
Yes.
This is our history. This is our legacy.
There were 2 plays that really started this desire to have a short play list that we fell in love with early on, which were Soldadera and Florence. Skye, what's your memory of how we came upon those and kind of like how we wanted to do this list?
Oh my God. I feel like as long as we have been doing this project, we've been circling this, particularly Soldadera, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous short play by Josefina Nigli, who is a list writer that we've featured before. The faves will know. Like, I remember us reading that play in what must have been like 2021. It was so unlike anything that we had read before. It's a story about a group of female soldiers during the Mexican Revolution and a slice of life about their experience being femme-bodied people during war, which is like not a story that any of us had ever seen told on stage, talked about in the media in any real way before. And we were all just so floored by that we would talk about this play all the time, and it just kept coming up, even though we had written it off pretty quickly because it was too short. But I described this play as like an earworm. Like we just couldn't, every year we'd find a way to talk about it in some capacity because we just couldn't let go of it. And eventually got to the point where we just had to do something with it. If the mission of this project is to uplift plays that we think are excellent and are getting overlooked, this is an excellent play that is getting overlooked. And so we felt like we kind of owed it to this writer and to ourselves to find a way to tell this story. And so we did. And I'm really excited for you all to read it.
Well, I remember, like, even from the first year that I joined the curating team, like, Soldadera was something that got brought up, like, multiple times. Like, I don't know, you want to talk about, like, legacy of plays. Like, Soldadera, I think, has a very big, like, legacy in Expand the Canon as, like, you know, one of those plays that I think excites us and drives us.
I think what was so interesting for me this season, I think that there's something interesting about the idea of like short plays as a jumping off point for writing longer plays or vice versa. And also like a fair amount of playwrights, if I remember correctly, that like almost exclusively wrote short plays.
Yeah.
Which I also find to be sort of an interesting practice.
Like Florence by Alice Childress was her first play, and she wrote, directed, and starred in it. This first one act as a jumping off point for the rest of her career obviously went to so many beautiful, notable, historic plays.
Probably, I would say this is actually my favorite play. in the whole list. And I do not say that lightly because I adore so many plays in this list. Like, I'm super fan of it. It is absolutely brilliant. It is absolutely, in terms of like, one of the tightest short plays I've ever read. And it also, a part of the American experience is a reconciliation and hopefully a repair of Jim Crowism, because this play is set in the Jim Crow South. And I think it does it without being didactic, because when you deal with these issues, of course, the impulse to preach and teach is there, because you want to say, look, it was wrong how we treated folks during these time periods. And that's legitimate. But what Alice Childress is just a pure genius about is that she never preaches in her plays. It's not didactic. So yeah, it's just beautiful. Produce it, folks. And it's just a tight play, just tight, well constructed.
If you haven't read Wedding Band, please do, from our 2020 list. She and Josefina Nigli are the two writers we repeated because we just couldn't help ourselves. But also, I'm pretty sure that Georgia Douglas Johnson, who wrote Plumes, which is another play I think we read back in 2020 and loved, and it's just devastating and beautiful and talks about class and healthcare and but I'm pretty sure Georgia Douglas Johnson only wrote short plays. So it was another one of those, like, I don't think we're going to be able to highlight some of these writers without delving into shorter and one-act plays, but there's such a rich history of it.
Something we say all the time is that, like, women have always been writing, and so, like, the idea of these plays are out there, you just have to do the work to discover them, is very central to our mission and how we approach this work. And also, I think there is something, it's worth acknowledging the fact that a lot of female writers throughout history were not writing with the hope of necessarily being traditionally published or produced, because the landscape was different. Like, a lot of these writers were writing what we call parlor dramas, of like plays meant to be read in your parlor. And I think that changes the landscape in terms of if you're not trying to get produced off Broadway, the length of the play you're writing doesn't matter. And people are probably going to be more likely to come over and watch your play in your living room if it's 70 minutes as opposed to 2.5 hours.
Feels like in a post-lockdown world, the idea of like, how long is this play, has become more of a hot topic.
I was thinking about something similar earlier. Now all plays are like 60 to 90 minutes.
Right. Yeah. I also think that there is like a narrative of like shorter is easier and like longer is harder, that lends itself to the idea of like what gets canonized. Short plays are also incredibly difficult to write. It is so hard to like find the economy of language. To build a full story in 10 pages is very, very hard. But I think that often gets overlooked in sort of historical canon. And I think especially in curating this list, I've developed a newfound appreciation for how difficult it is.
And it's so funny because I feel like we ran into quite a few plays this cycle where we were like, this play is great, it should be longer. Like you're not able to get everything done that you want to get done.
Short plays kind of live in this interesting zone. From a sort of producer mindset, you're looking at usually combining a short play with another short play to get a full night of theaters. That being said, I just really was impressed with the range. We have such a breadth of time, period, themes, people.
I also want to say, like, I think a wonderful opportunity with short plays is the ability to put plays in conversation with each other a little bit more accessibly. Like, I think that was really exciting to us, as well as the idea that, like, oh, maybe there'll be a company or an institution that will go and produce a festival showcasing a number of these plays, and the ability to put these plays in conversation with each other is really exciting to us.
Yeah.
Thinking about how you'll be hearing the rest of this season, we're actually going to discuss 2 of these plays in each episode. So we too will be in conversation and putting them in conversation.
Yes, for our amazing double features. Shall we segue into our favorite writers from this year that we got to discover and find?
Sure.
I struggle with talking about things that are noteworthy from this list because everything's noteworthy. That's why it made it to the list.
I mean, I'm not going to go on too long of a tangent about Maria Irene, perhaps, for those who know her, Fornes, because she's amazing. I've honestly, like, quick shout out, Catherine the Great. I feel like that was like a real like one that nobody saw coming. And I remember after we dropped the list and I like posted about it on my Instagram, I had like 3 people message me and be like, Catherine the Great is on this list. And I'm like, yeah, she was right in place. Can you believe that?
I was super excited to see my girl Catherine the Great, who I've been a fan of since I was like, I think in the third, fourth grade. Yes. Oh, and when I read all these times, I thought it was just terrific. She was really influenced by French neoclassicism, and you can see all of those influences when you read this play. It's such a wonderful glimpse of what was happening in 18th century Europe. Yeah, it's powerful. I love it.
And also, like, Sylvia Plath wrote a play, just one, but it's on this list. It's such a cool, heavy, beautiful, relevant play about pregnancy. And yeah, oh.
Not a new to me writer, but Dolores Prida's Screens has just stuck in my brain and like wormed its way in there and is not going to leave anytime soon. And has just become like a secret favorite of mine.
Oh my God, it's so not a secret favorite. It's absolutely a loud favorite of mine. Love Screens.
Yes.
Yes.
In terms of my favorite writers, I'm really sort of vibing with Wu Zhao. And thank you to the amazing translator, Sophie Volpe.
We've said it before, we'll say it again. We love translators.
Wu Zhao wrote Drinking Wine and Reading Encountering Sorrows. I think it's such a really beautiful meditation on what could have been had systems not disappointed you. And then really thinking about and imagining how the world could have been more open to you if you had been born a man. Yeah, that play really stuck out to me. It's powerful, it's beautiful, it is wonderful. If you get a dynamite performer, it is a play that performer can murder. It is just beautiful to watch.
First of all, great title.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a peak. It's one of the peak titles for me personally. It's one of those plays that I read it and I was like, this feels timeless to me. Timeless in its like expression of language, but then also in what it's actually saying. I don't like rips into the core of you, especially around its views around like gender and self-actualization is like a really delightful thing. And also I don't think we've had Emily and Skye, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't think we've had any other like one-handers.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting too from this process of around specifically that play, which has a bunch of different names, Drinking Wine and Reading Encountering Sorrow, The Reflection in Disguise, but we read a bunch of different translations of it because we were so excited to find this writer, Wu Zhao, who was writing in the 1800s in China about gender equity. It's like, heck yeah. But initially we just felt like the translations were, some of them were really clunky, some of them were much more academic, and it really goes to show like how important and crucial it is to have good theatrical translation. Because when we came upon Sophie Volpe's translation of this play, we were like, oh, yes, we knew this play was good, and it took her translation for us to be able to receive it in English at least.
That's true.
If you're a translator, hit us up.
Heck yeah.
I also want to shout out The Girls from the 5 and 10 by Abla Faroud. Of the plays we read this year, I would say that this play feels the most contemporary, perhaps, and is dealing with a lot of the immigration landscape that we are still dealing with today. And I think that was that felt very poignant to tell in this particular moment. Something we talk about a lot is like what defines a classic. And I think that gets a little bit easier sometimes when we're looking at plays that are 400 years old. But the sort of joyful challenge of looking at plays that were written perhaps in the 20th century is like what feels like it will have staying power, what feels like it's going to have, you know, historical importance in terms of what it is speaking to and capturing of a moment. And so that was a really exciting find.
In terms of moments from this process and this year of curating, there are just some plays that I remember, and almost always this happens that like if I can specifically remember where I was when I was reading it, like it's gonna go on the list. I remember reading the end of Pleasure by Rakilde and being like, like I just remember that feeling, it lives in my bones. Reign of Ice is another play that we were like circling for years. Kind of like Soldadera is a play that I don't know anything quite like it. I remember exactly where I was when I was reading the Guitaron and how immersive the space that Lynn Alvarez creates is. And like where I was reading it was so antithetical to like the beautiful beaches of Veracruz that she's creating. And yet I remember both experiences so vividly. It's been a really fun and exciting year of discovery and powerful moments and those earworm plays.
Hell yeah.
It's so interesting to me because this year in some ways it felt so much easier to curate this list. But I think it's because we fairly early on were like, it's going to be a longer list than normal. And for me, I was like, well, then anything I like, I'm just going to slap on this list. And there were so many good ones that I remember the first half of this list, at least, if not like 75%, came together so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were just like viciously debating the last 25%. But there's something so lovely about all of us just sort of looking at each other in the eye and being like, yes.
That's 100% true.
For me, that was just super fun. Debate and argue and, plead the case for certain plays and also to kind of like talk trash about certain plays too. All of it was all love and all great. I loved it, loved it. Yeah, it was just so cool, man. It was just so cool. And it was the highlight of my 2024 experience. I feel very bonded with the curating team and just, glad to be a part of this process and glad that I was able to contribute to this wonderful list and discovering these wonderful plays.
Totally. This year's list in particular is it's probably got some of our most like experimental and like, for lack of a better word, like weird plays on it. Elevating those is really so fun.
And I think like part of that was having more plays that we were just able to, like Kalina said, we were just sort of able to sort of like chase our curiosities a little bit more because we take the brief very seriously of wanting to create a balanced list in terms of like genre and time period and like what the author's backgrounds are like and making sure that like we're speaking to a lot of different theatrical traditions and just like in every way possible. And having more slots meant that we could just be like, all right, this is just a cool play. We just enjoy it. That was exciting to me, and I hope that bears out in terms of like the people who are hopefully experiencing this list and going away and saying, heck yeah, I'll take a chance on this.
Get excited for all of the weird, the fascinating, the challenging, the funny, and the moving that are in these plays.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, all of this is just really amazing and just kind of beautiful to explore with this list.
I think Kalina really like summed it up in the sense of like this was a really joyful and easy experience this past year, and I'm really excited for people to encounter these plays with the same sort of sense of joy and curiosity that we found in putting it together.
Some memories that stick out from curating. So many women have been writing plays and like so I read plays for other theater companies as well, and of course those are all modern plays, and every time I finish it I walk away from it being like, wow, so many people write plays. And then I read all of our classical plays and I was like, wow, so many people have been writing plays. I like have been thinking a lot about like being able to like witness all of these plays that these women wrote, and that's like something about like the mission of this process of Expand the Canon that is something that I like really I've just kind of been hit by recently. I feel very honored, and I really, really love that we get to read these people's plays. I really love that we get to get into the soup of all of that and talk about it together. I always have fun curating with y'all.
Aww.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us for another season of This is a Classic, the Expand the Canon podcast. If you believe in the importance of expanding the canon, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe to the podcast.
and then hit the share button and forward it along to a friend, colleague, professor, or person that really loves short plays.
To easily find, read, and produce these plays, you can sign up and subscribe to expandthecanon.com.
For some information on what's up next, you can follow us on Instagram,
At Hedgepig Ensemble Theater
Facebook,
/Hedgepig Ensemble Theater,
or join our mailing list at
hedgepigensemble.org.
You can also support this effort by buying some Expand the Canon merch,
To brag to your friends that you're changing the future of classics,
reading and producing these plays as classics,
and reaching out to us to partner on them.
or straight up donating and making all of these efforts possible, which you can do from our website, expandthecanon.com. Bye!
See you later.
Stay classic. I'm really
Cute.
into that.
I really feel confident in this list that we've created for 2024. It is a really powerful play.